Very good morning to one and all. It is an immense pleasure to invite one and all to this wonderful occasion. I welcome our chief guest and our beloved Vice Principal Ma'am. I request our beloved Vice Principal Ma'am to deliver the welcome address. Please, ma'am.
Very good morning to one and all. On behalf of Arasu Engineering College, Kumbakonam, Tamil Nadu, India, it gives me an immense pleasure in extending a very warm and cordial welcome to you all to this international webinar on the topic DevOps automation. At the outset, I am very much happy to welcome our respected Principal Sir, Dr. T. Balamurugan, and our Dean of Academics, Mr. M. Rukmahadan, and other faculty members of our college. I am very much pleased to welcome the resource person of the event, Mrs. Annie Michaelia, DB Architect and Specialist, Broadridge Financial Solutions, Newark, New Jersey, USA. I congratulate the Department of Computer Science coordinators and all the members of the department. I wholeheartedly welcome all the delegates, participants, and my dear friends to join in this webinar. I wish all the participants to have an effective and informative session today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the introduction about our chief guest. Uh, Annie Michaelia, BAMS, have over 2 decades of experience in all database technologies and working as a database specialist, architect, as a database at Broadridge Financial Solutions Incorporation, New Jersey, USA, working extensively on AWS cloud databases and integrated DevOps practices for database technologies. International award winner at DevOps World 2019, California, USA, under DevOps Automation Excellence category. DevOps practitioner for AWS Cloud and on all premises. Welcome, you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kannan.
Ma'am. I welcome our chief guest to deliver the keynote address for the participants. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so am I good to share my screen? Hello, good morning to everyone. I'm very honored and glad to present this topic before the students, the aspiring students, and the professors and the faculties. Today's topic is regarding DevOps, trends and techniques, and about automation. And my name is Annie Michaelia. I work as a database specialist architect at Broadridge, which is in New Jersey. So before I start, the introduction was great, but still I would like to express, or I'm glad to share about me before I start the topic. Basically, I'm a database specialist, but I'm a proud DevOps practitioner, meaning DevOps is my bread and butter day-to-day life. And I'm proud to deliver this topic because I thought I'm eligible to do this. I got an international award like I was introduced before in DevOps World 2019 for Automation Excellence category. The thing is that my company won the award because of the work I did towards DevOps. So we'll be seeing all the DevOps trends and techniques in the next few slides. And I'll share my PowerPoint with you guys. And here there is a radio podcast interview, and I shared my DevOps success in my company, and that is the link is provided here. And you can just listen and listen on how the DevOps made changes to my life in the normal organization. And this is my LinkedIn profile, and you are very welcome to contact me if you have any questions or anything to get resolved in the future. Okay, let me see. Okay. So before we go into the topic, what is DevOps? I would like to tell you what is not a DevOps. So to start explaining what is not a DevOps, let's look at this funny picture. So whenever a new topic in IT comes into picture, we started imagining things, right? Which is something really big and huge and which we cannot go and make use of it. But that's the normal mindset or psychology for people. So this picture actually tells technology versus people. So whenever new technology comes in, people start thinking. So like here, a person who touches the trunk, he imagines something like continuous delivery. A person who touches the feet thinks something else, but a person who touches a dangerous part, he thinks something totally different, right? So ultimately, the picture tells us whenever new topic, new trend come into picture in IT field, we start imagining something really huge and big, and we started getting scared about the things, but it's not. So that's what I'm trying to explain here. And before going into what is DevOps, we should know what is not a DevOps. So DevOps is not a programming language. It's not a scripting tool. It's not a software. It's not a hardware. So that we need to make it very clear. It's not something readily available. DevOps is a software development practice. So there are so many terms. If you look at Google documents or if you look at some YouTube videos, there are several videos explaining what is DevOps. Fortunately or unfortunately, all are making sense and all are true. Whatever definition you read from outside, from books or from websites, those are all the actual meanings of DevOps. So that's the beauty of it. So DevOps, like I said, it's a practice. It's a software development practice. It's an approach how you deliver a product in any company, starting from the coding and to the delivery. And it's a mindset for people to pick up an approach which is feasible to the company as well as which is feasible to the way of working and which is feasible for the ROI, return on investment. It's a culture. So when you see a culture, well, what does it mean? It has a set of rules, set of techniques to follow, right? So DevOps can be called as a culture. It is a philosophy. So it's why it is a philosophy, because it doesn't apply to everybody, but it's good if you apply it in your life in the sense in your working life. So that's why they call it as a philosophy. And it's a modern SDLC, software development life cycle. It's a modern style of SDLC. And DevOps is mostly for agility. The literal meaning of agility is fast and smooth. So whatever things you do in a faster pace and in a smoothly without having any issues, then you can call that process an agile process. So DevOps is an agile process. And ultimately, DevOps leads to an automation, which means a lot of manual efforts are eradicated. And ultimately, human errors are completely gone. DevOps actually opens the door for virtualization. So what is virtualization? We all know, right? So the whole world is virtualized now. Let's take a simple example, Google Documents. You guys may be using it, right? So you save a Word document in Google Document, but we never know where the actual physical server exists. It exists somewhere in United States or China or somewhere else, but you have the ability to use it, or you have the ability to use that infrastructure virtually. So DevOps is a tool which can enhance the virtualization. Then immutable. So what is immutable? So mutable in the sense anything which can be repeatedly changed. Immutable is just the opposite of it. So if you build an infrastructure or a product, that has to be an immutable state or immutable infrastructure. For instance, for a simple example, you want to install Java in your laptop. So you installed yesterday, and today you want to try to install again, forgetting that you installed already. But when you install again, the software should be intelligent enough to tell you that software is already existing without collapsing the existing installation. It should just spit out the errors and come out. So that is the immutability. So it doesn't destroy the existing infrastructure, but if you run the automation over and over and again, does not actually collapses the infrastructure. So that is the major advantage of DevOps. We'll be seeing that how this is being achieved. Idempotent. idempotent is very close to immutable. So the terms looks different vocabulary, but when you look at the meaning, it's very simple. Idempotent is something if you do over and over again, it does not disturb the existing installation, but just skips it and do the missing pieces. So when you do any DevOps automation, it has to be immutable, and it has to be idempotent. And then when I say DevOps is a practice, so practice cannot be done by one person, right? So it has to be a collaborative practice. See, in organization, if you think collaboration, it means collaborating between teams who do several different topics or several different nature of work. Even in your college, if you think, right, you have a laboratory, you have a professor to teach how to code it, and you have an administrator who takes care of the infrastructure. So all the teams should collaborate between each other to have a successful laboratory session for you, right? So that collaboration actually is very simple and easy when you do DevOps practices. Ultimately, when there is a good collaboration, the efficiency of the product is increased. Finally, the outcome will be faster, cost effective. That's why they call DevOps as a game changer for software development. So what I'm trying to say is DevOps is just a practice for software development in a faster, automated, cheaper, cost-effective, or idempotent way. So that's all about the topic DevOps. Next, we'll be seeing how the terms Dev and Ops came into picture and what was not existing before and what caused this DevOps to arise. So to talk about that, let's just sit back and think about the evolution of SDLC processes. So you might have thinking, right? So why DevOps? Well, didn't we have any process before which is working? Yeah, there are processes and there were processes. But why the new techniques are evolving? Because of the advantages on the new technologies. So when we just think back our legacy model of software development, even in your textbook, in your software development or paper, you might have studied about this waterfall model, right? So waterfall model is the legacy model or the first model developed for any software development lifecycle. So what is a waterfall model? When you look at the picture, right, it's a linear process, meaning all the phases of software development goes from top to bottom. And if you want, excuse me, and if you want to go back to the previous step, it's not easy and simple. You have to go all the way to the top and then you have to recreate. So let's take an example. So there is a company and there are a group of developers. There is a project to create a website, simple project, website, and you have 3 developers. So what normally a company does? So there will be a project architecture team. So that team sits and design the architecture, how the website should look like, and what are the inputs should come in, what are the outputs. So those kind of a designing piece will be done by an architecture team. And with respect to the architecture, they started gathering the requirements for the project. So what do you need? What server you need? What software you need? How many resources, manpower you need? So those things will be done in the requirements process phase. And after that, they'll start and do the analysis phase. So with this existing requirements and with the existing design, how long will it take to finish the product or finish the project? So that's the analysis phase. Then once these 3 phases are completed, it will go to the design phase, and then it goes to the developer for the coding for the actual website, and then it will be sent to the testing team for test to see all the functionalities are working on the website. Finally, when the testing team approves, it gets deployed. So this is a normal pattern, and this is a workable pattern on any company. But just think, you wrote a code, say for a website, and that works fine in one browser, Chrome, and it's not working in Internet Explorer. So if that is a problem during deployment, in the legacy model, what happens is the deployment team directly complains or go to the architecture team and they'll just tell, these are the errors. and your project works for this browser, this does not work for the other browser. So now the project architecture itself will change, the requirements will again change, and all the process has to be repeated all the way from top to bottom. So what happens? What is the problem? What is a caveat? Why don't we use this? Reason behind is time. Time is most important for any organization than money. If time is reduced, ultimately your cost is reduced. And if you do a simple process, and if you fall through the phases over again and again and again, it's not an efficient way of software development lifecycle. So that is why in early 2000s, this is actually a frustration of a developer. So one of a developer, he thought about this process and he wants to change it. In early 2000s, they actually formulated agile methodologies. So what that means, they again designed some of the processes or some of the methods of software development, and they name it like Scrum or whatever, and then they just improvised the waterfall model to the agile model. So looking at the structure itself, you can easily differentiate from linear model to a spiral model. So what is the benefit of this spiral model? So if you see here, there is some interaction between the phases: plan, design, develop, test, deploy, review, launch. But if you see here, there is an intersection of this Venn diagram, right? So there is some collaboration. So they thought this actually improves the software development lifecycle. So it is very famous. Even now it is famous in all software development companies. They're still using some of the agile methodologies, and it's still effective. So now next question is, if this is effective, what is the purpose of inventing a new practice called DevOps, right? So this is perfect until deployment. Even this model is perfect until deployment. But after that, after the product is delivered, there are so many other things to take care. You have to monitor. For instance, you have to monitor the life cycle of the website. What if in the nighttime, if the website goes down? So it's an outage, right? So you have to maintain, you have to monitor, and you have to actually control all the phases, right from the plan until maintenance and monitoring. So that the final piece which is missing, so that was actually incorporated into DevOps with even simpler phases of software development. So you don't have to follow any other agile methodologies. Still, you can achieve the practice right from the plan until to the maintenance and monitoring. So these are the differences, or these are the reasons why DevOps evolved. So DevOps, the word actually came from dev and ops. And it actually started early 2007, again, by a developer, software developer who writes code for the company, and he thinks this process, agile methodology, can still be improvised. So he actually created a model. If you see the structure, it's an infinite structure. So which means in the agile method, it's a spiral. So it starts at planning phase and it ends at launching phase. But when you see here, it never ends. All the phases are continuous. Continuously code, continuously build, continuously test, release, deploy, operate, monitor, continuously plan. So there is no breakage between the software development phases. It's continuous. In turn, whenever there is a continuous process, you get the return faster. So how the term was coined, dev and ops. So until the legacy models, waterfall as well as the modern agile model, they just talk about the development phase. They does not care about the operations phase. But DevOps introduced the operations phase, and it integrated development and operations. So let me explain a little more. So what comes under development and what comes under operation? In an organization, like we said before, there are teams who architects the projects, do requirement analysis, and then gives to the developer for coding. There is a testing team to test it. There is a deployment team to roll it out. So that is completely a development phase. Besides this, there is an operational team that was not at all taken into consideration for the automation purposes. So what that team does, they actually maintains, monitors, and takes care of the infrastructure for the organization. So like I said, in your college laboratory, you can take your system administrator who takes care of your laboratory infrastructure, comes under this operational team. So what their major role is to set up infrastructure, maintain and monitor, and make it up and running all the time, so that whenever the developer comes and works into this phase, it should be available all the time. So always available, always up and running with full health. So that is the major role of the operation team. And when the developer finishes their code and they surrender to the operation team, normally what the operator does is they just install the code into whatever server they are instructed to do. Basically, what I'm trying to say is this operation team has no idea what was developed by the developer, whether it will work or not, whether it has been tested or not. So it is completely a black box for him. So whatever code he gets from the development side, he just deploys it. That was the legacy model. But in the DevOps model, since if you see this infinite symbol, operator know what is being developed, and the testing team know what is being coded, and the developer knows how these guys are deploying. So everything is transparent. All the processes are transparent to all the teams. Ultimately, they started collaborating with each other, and ultimately it results in a faster phase of software development lifecycle. So that's the major key of this DevOps process. Operations and development team work together in an agile way, smoother way, agile meaning faster and smoother way to attain their end result. So that's how they coined the term DevOps, development and operations. Whenever you talk about DevOps, you should first know a word called continuous. Everything is continuous. I'll tell you how it is continuous. Continuously business planning, continuous collaboration, continuous testing, release, monitoring, feedback. Everything is continuous, meaning it flows like a pipeline, like a water pipeline. What is a water pipeline? You see water running all the time, right? So likewise, it's a pipeline of integrating multiple software development phases and orchestrate that as an automation job, and that flows through continuously so that the return on investment for the organization is always in a higher rate. Any organization needs that, right? So ultimately they need ROI, return on investment. So that is achievable if you do, or if you practice DevOps in your organization. So when you guys graduate and join a job, knowingly or unknowingly, you will be part of this DevOps process in some phase. Maybe a coder, you can join as a tester, maybe you can go as an administrator, but wherever you go in any phase of software development, you will be eventually be part of this DevOps practice, which is the modern practice, and you will be contributing your skills to the company to attain the ROI. So before going into how DevOps works, let's talk about why DevOps. Why do we need DevOps? The first thing is automation. So DevOps leads to an automation. The DevOps process itself is actually tends to automate things. So that's the key. Second thing is reusability. So when you automate something and keep it aside, it has to be reused multiple times for multiple reasons, for multiple projects. So that is reusable. The same component should be reusable for multiple projects. So whenever a new project kicks in, or whenever new clients comes to a company and they wanted a software to be delivered, and if you had the automation already existing created by your developers, you should just make use of it. You don't have to tell the developers to reinvent things again and again and again. So once you automate something, it's available to reuse any number of times. So that is actually the key for DevOps. And ROI, I have been repeating this term many times, return on investment. So if you look at the picture, I'm showing two buttons, right? Two buttons, one from development team and one from operations team. So this development team's jobs include plan, code, build and test. Operators' job include operate, deploy, release, monitor. But both of them, they would like to just click a button and do all the magic. So that is the key for this automation. Everyone wants to just push a button which can do all the phases seamlessly, continuously. So this is actually the requirement, and that is why DevOps is being designed. Okay, so DevOps tools for the stages. So like I said before, it's not a software, it's not a hardware, it's not a programming language. Then how do you practice? I said it's a practice, right? So in organization, you can practice DevOps. How do you practice? So if you want to play a badminton, if I said go and play badminton, how do you practice? You need a tool, right? You need bat, you need cork to play it. So likewise, in DevOps, for each stages of DevOps, you can make use of the tools available in the market. So I showed like a bigger picture here with n number of tools. We don't need to get afraid of this. We don't have to know all the tools. First of all, we need to identify the stages of DevOps and where you fit in that practice in a company. For that stage, you can pick whatever tool you want to learn or you want to make use of it. So that's how you need to approach. Tools for each stages of DevOps, you can see thousands of tools, thousands of new terms, and you don't have to know everything. So let's take a look at the stages. So when you say DevOps stages, the very first thing starts with the source code management. So what is source code management? Whenever a developer writes a code, say for example, the same example website, if he wants to create a page, he's writing a JavaScript code. So that source code need to be maintained seamlessly. So in earlier or in normal or earlier practices, how this source codes were managed was there will be a common place or common folder like in your laptop file folder, and or some softwares for tracking the source code. So for a project, assume you have 5 developers. So the developer 1, he writes some code that creates some 3 buttons for the website. He finished the code and he wants to upload his code and go to home, right? When his day is done. When the next developer, he wants to enhance the code, normally what he does is he needs to download the code, make changes and upload to the same copy. And the third developer, when he comes in, he needs to do the same thing, download the code, make some changes, upload it. So this was the regular source code management in the earlier days. Again, what is the caveat? There is a big caveat, right? What happens if the first developer's code was appropriate and third developer code was a complete crap? For example, so he overwritten all the good code, right? So you don't have a golden copy because all the files are being overwritten again and again. You don't have a golden working copy. Then when the first developer comes back in, he needs to upload his code again and he has to start over. So this was a very poor source code management for any companies. So in DevOps, source code management takes an important role. That is why you do everything continuously without any stopping or any blockages. For the source code management, if like with the same example, 5 developers, or committing their code on the same piece, there should be a tool that should be able to differentiate all the copies. Developer 1 copy, developer 2 copy, developer 3 copy, and whoever approves the code should be able to pick up the latest and should make use of it. So that is the requirement for source code management. And in market, GitLab and GitHub are the famous source code management tools. If you see here for development, there are so many tools listed. This symbol is for GitLab or GitHub. GitHub is here. So this is a very famous tool for source code, and Nexus is one of the two. So when you fit in any company on this level, like as a developer, so what do you need? You need some source code management tool. So you need to understand how the source code management tool works. So that is your requirement. So you will be learning how GitLab works or GitHub works. GitHub is it's an open source. You can actually be part of this GitHub and you can start uploading your code. So it is open and all over the world, you can actually collaborate with multiple developers for simple thing. For instance, you are creating a project, you can upload to the GitLab and you can ask for suggestions. And there are some other people who have already done that in a better way. They'll just give you their source code to you and you can comment your code. So this way, GitHub opens up the world and it actually starts the collaboration worldwide without even knowing the people. But coming back to the organization, within developers, you can coordinate in a better way. So that is source code management. So for that, in my company, we use GitLab. And that is actually one of the famous tools most of the companies use. So that I need to know how that works. So I'll be telling all this a little later. And the next stage is build server. So what is build server? Whenever your code is ready, 5 developers written their code and your manager approved, the golden copy is ready, then that source code, that program or whatever you call, that has to be pushed to the next stage, right? So that is called as a build server. So there are so many build servers in the market. One famous example is Jenkins. Jenkins is not a free tool, but you can download in your desktop and you can just play around. Jenkins is an orchestration tool which can act as a build server, which means it can actually takes your source code from wherever you instruct to take, and then it can move to a different level. I'll tell you how it works. The next stage is virtual infrastructure. Again, I'm taking the Google document as an example. Infrastructure is virtual. It's somewhere else. You don't see it, but you're making use of it. So in DevOps, most of the testings will be done through virtual infrastructure. So it doesn't cost anything to the company because it just spins up a mission, test your code, and it will just destroy it. So it's like an on-demand server just to test your code. So that is required. Configuration management, that is part of source code and build server. Test automation. So after the coding is done, it goes to a testing team. And again, testing team should have some automation testing tools to test your code, whether it works or not. So that is test automation. When all these pieces are ready, you need something to integrate. You need something to make connections between source code management to build server, to virtual infrastructure, configuration management, testing. So all these connections, all these phases can be orchestrated through a pipeline, through some softwares. Most probably, most of the companies, they use Jenkins, Hudson, Kubernetes. There are so many tools to orchestrate the flow of your automation. So that is orchestration. So these are the basic stages for any DevOps practice. And all you need to know is for each stage, you should at least know one tool, how that works. And if you're able to incorporate that, and creating the pipeline to orchestrate is very simple. So whenever we call DevOps, we normally use the term continuous, right? So let me close this. Continuous, that's the key word for DevOps. Everything has to be continuous. So whenever you say DevOps term, you will be always using another term called CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous delivery. So continuous integration practice or the phase just works for the development, and continuous delivery is the phase which works for the operations. So why it is called as continuous integration? So I'll show you in the next slide. So when multiple people start coding, that has to be coordinated, integrated continuously without any lag, and that has to be pushed to the next phase for the deployment. So that is continuous integration. So whenever you are asked in a company, you are asked what CI tool you are using for DevOps. So first thing comes to your mind should be what source code management tool you are using. So here in my company, I use GitLab. So if someone asks me what CI tool you use, I'd say GitLab. So CI is a process and GitLab is a software or a tool which can be used to attain or to do this process. Continuous delivery. So once the source code is managed and ready for deployment, there should be some deployment process, automated process through some software. Usually it's Jenkins because my company uses that. So that does automate continuous delivery. So someone writes the code, commits it, and that is ready for deployment. That will be instantly tested through Jenkins. And if it fails, it actually goes back to developer. They recode again, submit it, and then again goes to delivery. So the CI and CD flows in an infinite circle. So they interact, collaborate between each other continuously. So when you talk about continuous integration, you need to know about two things: source repository and artifact repository. So what is a repository? Like I said before, in the legacy period, if you want to write a code, what normally we upload the code in a shared folder in your laptop or in a server. The other guy can pull the code, update it, and then replace the file. But in CI, DevOps CI model, you will have two things: source repository and artifact repository. So what is a repo? Repo is a common place or a centralized location where anybody in the sense, anybody from that project development team should be able to submit the code or should be able to take the code which is already existing, should be able to update the code and submit it. So that is source repository. It's a place. Normally in GitLab, it comes like a URL for us. So what happens is, for a project, you will have a folder created for that project. For instance, it's a website management project. So your folder will be created in your web URL. And within that folder, for the website management, maybe you're creating an HTML file, for example. So that file will reside. And if the developer one who wants to add some code into it, he can retrieve the code, make changes, and he can upload. And developer 2 can do the same thing. Developer 3 can do the same thing. This code repository can maintain multiple versions of the code, which is interesting here. Even though they are pulling up the common file which is already existing or creating a new file, the code repository maintains individual copies of the code. But you will also see the final copy. Yeah, I can explain here. So here, working directory. This is the local repository and this is remote repository. Let's assume local repository is your local laptop because you start coding from your desktop laptop. So what happens is if you already have a copy HTML file existing, in your remote repository, you will just pull the code into your local laptop or desktop. So after pulling, you will add your changes, and then you will commit the changes back, and you will push the code to the remote repository. And again, this guy comes in, he will do the same thing. So he'll pull the latest code from the remote repo, make changes, commit the changes, push. So this is like a slogan in GitLab: Git add, Git commit, Git push. This is the three things you will do all the time. First time you will do a pull. So what happens is this remote repository, even though it applies all the three changes, the final change, the third developer, excuse me. The final change will be actually the golden copy in the remote repo, but this also contains the other copies of the other developers. So here, if the final copy has flaws, has a crappy code, so we have an option to go and pick up his version, developer one's version, and we can commit the changes to the golden copy. So this is the advantage. And if you think the developer's 2 code is good, then we can commit to the master copy. So this is actually the flexibility given in the source code management, so that any number of people from geographically located places like from Russia or China or US or India, they can still start working on the same project, still enhance the project and enhance the code. Everybody's version is maintained, and the final copy can be decided by the manager or the team lead of the company. So this way, his work is not disturbed, his work is not disturbed, his work is also not disturbed. It's continuously integrated to the remote repository. So this is source repository. Source repository meaning source code being deposited in a common central location. The next term we need to know is artifact repository. So artifact is a term used in companies. So what is an artifact? Whenever a code is ready for the release, so you're writing a program, right, for your lab, until you finish your coding, until you submit it to your professor, it's still a source repo code. It is subject to change. But if you submitted the assignment to your professor, that's done deal. You cannot make any more changes, right? So that is artifact repository. So whenever the remote repos copy is treated as a final copy, it will be pushed to the next repository called artifact repository. That is using a different tool called Nexus. Of course, there are many tools in the market. So this is how the CI is being done, and this is how the developers continuously integrate their code. I don't know how to erase this lines. I didn't do this, but I don't know. Okay. Is there a clear or something? No. Okay, never mind. So this is, I just picked this screenshot from my company, so I have to hide some of the names here. This is how a GitLab looks. Like I said, it's a free tool. You can also use GitHub, which is an open source. So here, this is it comes like a URL to the developer. So you're not installing anything. It just comes as a web URL. And you will be given a folder, something like this, chef cookbooks or whatever. And within that folder, you can start putting your files. And each person's copy will be maintained as a version. I can just show here. Say I'll just take one of this example. If I just click this, you can see the previous copy and current copy. And it says 1 file changed, 1 deletion, 1 addition. So you have the ability to pick whichever file you want. So this is how it maintains all the versions. If I click on the commits here, see, these are the different versions on the code. So each code, each update, if I update this file and if I just commit the changes, it creates one more copy of the file here. So if someone else wants to view the file and wants to pick up this code, he can just click and make use of the code. So this is how GitLab maintains multiple versions, and this is how the developers can work independently and continuously. So next is continuous delivery or deployment. So now the code is ready in the remote repo. Now it's ready for deployment. So normally again, this again comes like a, any questions here? I don't know how to click this. Anyway, we can have a question and answer session later. Okay, so again, so for the continuous delivery, we can pick a tool. My company uses Jenkins. So that tool can do the continuous deployments. So it actually picks your source code from the source repo, and then it identifies where to install, what to install, and then it actually contacts the target server and installs. It just, the line diagram is just for understanding, but behind the scene, you won't feel anything. You just create a automation job in Jenkins, and you just tell which repository and which file you need to download and on which server you need to install. You will just mention that as a visual scheduler kind of thing, and that the Jenkins is intelligent enough to read that and download, and then it starts installs to the target host or target servers. So when you say CD, there are two terms: continuous delivery and continuous deployment. So some people, they call continuous delivery and some they call continuous deployment. There is a huge difference. Continuous delivery is something like when the code is ready, Jenkins can automatically pick, but it won't deploy it. It will wait for somebody to push a button. That is continuous delivery, meaning the code is delivered, but the deployment has to wait. Because normally in any organization, not anybody can just push the button and just install a code on a target mission, right? Because all companies, they have clients and customers, and they cannot impact their customers on the go. So normally there will be a team that decides whether this code can be go into that specific server or not. So there is a gatekeeper. We call there will be some governance team or some approval team that decides when the source code can be deployed. So that if you do that way, then you can call it as continuous delivery. Continuous deployment is something like whenever the code is applied to the remote repo, Jenkins automatically reads it and deploys it. It doesn't care about any approvals. So that is continuous deployment. But financial companies like my companies, we don't normally encourage continuous deployments because that causes outages and impacts to the customers. So we have some gatekeepers here, physical person who decides whether this can be deployed or not. So that is why we have two terms, delivery and deployment, but continuous delivery has more meaning than continuous deployment. Continuous deployment is more like an autopilot mode driving a car, right? You just get into the car and push a button, it just takes you, like you're riding Tesla cars. But that's not safe all the time, right? Because it's end of the day, it's a mission. It just senses something and it just programs accordingly. So continuous deployment for any real organization is not completely encouraged, but that is actually the future of DevOps. So Jenkins is a CDE tool. This is how the screen looks like. I just took a screenshot from my project. So you can create multiple automation jobs, and within the job, you can just tell from which source code you have to download what file, and then how to and where you want to install. So those things you can specify here, and your complete deployment will be automated. This is really annoying. I don't know how these lines came in. Okay. And I don't know how to remove this as well. Any suggestions here? All right. Okay, we are running out of time. So yeah, this is the overall flow I was talking so far. Developer writes the code into a common repo. There will be a CI server that has the compilers for all the softwares, not just C, C++, Java. It also has the Chef software and then Terraform. There are so many tools, automated tools. It has all the softwares that checks syntax and semantic errors. And if it fails, it goes back to the developer. If it passes the stage, it goes to the tester for testing. If that passes the stage, it goes to the deployment team. And when there is a green signal to deployment, it will be deployed. So this is the practice. And instead of real people sitting here, everything, this is real actually. Other than this, all other things are automated through a process or tool. Here, GitLab. Here, again, GitLab can do CI as well. Testing, there are tools for testing. For deployment, Jenkins. So these are all tools, and only a physical person sits for the development. So this cannot be automated. We need people to do coding, right, for new things. So this is the entire flow. So I just pulled this screenshot from my company because this is a simple workflow of a DevOps project. So DevOps automation. For instance, you're writing a simple shell script to create a user on a Linux machine. You can start coding your Linux shell script here, upload to Git, and you should have a CI server to pull the code and push to the artifact repository. So this is source repository. This is artifact repository. So when your code is pushed here, developer cannot make any changes. But until he pushes the code into Git, he has the opportunity to update the code anytime. So this is pushed. And again, Jenkins acts as a build server. It extracts the code from the artifact repository and then it deploys. It can deploy in cloud or in on-premise or in a physical server, anywhere. So this is a very simple flow of any DevOps automation job. It can be a very simple program. You don't have to learn all the complex softwares like Chef or Terraform or Kubernetes to do DevOps. You can start with simple shell scripting or Python scripting to achieve a task, to create like a run book, or to create a for your college symposiums. If you want to create something, you can start like this. So that actually involves your DevOps practice. So you have to practice the process rather inventing things. So this is a benefit of DevOps. Yeah, we talked about a lot before. Faster solution, improved performance, increased efficiency, improved customer experience, faster ROI, completely reduced failures and rollbacks. Since everything is automated, if a human deploys, it's prone to human errors, right? So this piece is completely eradicated using these practices. So for an aspiring student like you will ask me, where do I start? I want to practice DevOps. Start with your text editor. That's what I will say. What is your favorite text editor? Don't say Notepad. Try Notepad++. Try Visual Studio Code. Try Atom. So these editors comes with inbuilt compilers. So if you type a Java code, and if you miss a parenthesis or a single quote, it tells you something is odd. So while coding itself, it tells you. So start with a text editor which has compilers in it. Then, like I said, you should have a basic knowledge about shell scripting. So learn Unix. How do you learn Unix in a simpler way? Just download Git Bash. It's a tool, free tool. Download in your laptop. And let me show you. So it looks like this. See, this is Windows, but you can run all your Linux commands like ls, all these things. So instead of using command prompt, try this. So start using Git Bash. And start coding with Python or Node.js, all new scripting languages. Start doing that. And in future, so when you really want to get into DevOps, you have to learn any of these tools for your automation. Chef or Terraform, Kubernetes, Helm. These are the famous tools. That's why I listed here. See, nothing is like you don't have to worry about any software programming language. Everything has a similar syntactic structure and semantic rules. That's it. So if you know how to, and you're not going to reinvent the wheel. Everything is available in Google, right? If you want to try a program, and if you type just that word, you get the entire program. So you're not going to reinvent anything. All you need to know is how to make use of these new tools for the existing code. So I would suggest you to start looking into this. I mean, when not now, it's too early for students, but in future, before you join any company. So what is the future of DevOps? So we said it's the best in the world, right? So it has everything. So then what is the future? So DevSecOps is the future of DevOps. So what is DevSecOps? So they want to introduce security features because in companies, they have some standard security auditings. Like normally you might have heard about some international standards, right? For organizations, like for software companies, they have standard security auditings, how they maintain user credentials, how they maintain passwords. So in DevOps, it's a very important topic. So DevSecOps is going to be the future of DevOps, where the new tools are getting invented to attain the security. Next is artificial intelligence and machine learning. So besides software industry, there are so many other industries, right? Geographical industry, astronomical, astrological industry. There are so many industries where they just deal with the data, not any logics. So in those fields, they find DevOps is the best bet for them. The next thing is integration between services. So nowadays, everything is virtualized and we don't see the physical machine in our eyes, but we started using it. I'm repeating again, Google Documents, the best example I would say. So you are just receiving as a web URL for your Word document, but you are utilizing Word and the server sits somewhere else. So everything comes as a service to you. Service in the sense, everything comes as a web URL to you, even database is coming as a web URL to you. Infrastructure is a URL. So all you need is to just browse the URL and see your infrastructure. Rather, you physically see the mission or physically maintain data centers or anything. So everything is virtualized. So now you have to concentrate on infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, database as a service, etc. Everything comes as a service. Whenever there are service as a term, DevOps is the only way to achieve automation. Then, like I said, continuous deployment is the future in an autopilot mode. Serverless. Serverless meaning, for instance, you want to run a Java program. Normally, what do you need? Basically, you need a computer, right? But in a serverless field, you can just run your program in an on-demand basis, and you can just release the mission, like in cloud. Cloud is very famous nowadays. Google Cloud, Amazon, AWS Cloud. So all the functionalities or programs can be instantly executed without owning a server. To run a simple program in olden period, normally we will invest on the machines, right? We invest on the servers, and then we make use of it for other programmings. Nowadays, if you want to run a program, just on demand basis, get a virtual machine, run your program, release the machine back to Amazon or cloud or Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud. So that is serverless. So wherever serverless is gearing up, you have DevOps. Containerized. Now again, so it's a container is like an advanced mode of virtual machine. So virtual machine is nothing but physical server sits somewhere else and you are just accessing a portion of it as a VM. And when you say containerized, if that VM comes with an installed software, you call that as a containerized VM, containerized machine. So that is containerized. Normally, nowadays, containers are very famous. And wherever containers needs to be deployed, DevOps is widely used. And Kubernetes is a tool which is used for container-based deployments. And these are some of the references. You can make a note of it. DevOps.com, this gives more information. And there is a white paper. This is really good. DevOps and Agile, how they get together on a VM. And in Amazon, they have a very simple, literal explanation of what is DevOps. And Udemy, you have DevOps courses. You can start some beginner course to understand. And there's a conference coming up in Singapore, virtual conference. This is the URL. If anyone is interested, you can just register online. It will be broadcasted or it will be conducted from Singapore, but you can, it's a free registration. If you're interested about DevOps and SecOps, which I said before, DevSec conference, so you can do so. And yeah, that's all I have. Now, yeah, I can ask questions.
Dear participants, if you have any queries, please raise your hand. If you raise your hand, you are unmuted. Dear participants, if you have any queries, please raise your hand. You will be unmuted. Ma'am?
Yeah. Yeah, I see two participants raised.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Myself, Rajesh, Assistant Professor from King's College of Engineering, Tanjuma.
I'm sorry, your audio is not clear.
Can you hear me now, ma'am?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Myself, Rajesh, Assistant Professor from King's College of Engineering, Tanjuma.
Okay, hi Rajesh.
Hi, ma'am. Your session was really very super, ma'am. Your way of explanation on DevOps was very amazing. We just made our remember our college days, the way you handled the DBMS and MA subject for us in the year 1998 and 1999. Thank you so much. You are my project.
Thank you.
Hope you remember our batch, Divakar.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I definitely do.
You have handled us Foxtrot Lab also.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for the organizers for taking our ma'am to a very good platform, and I'm happy to see her after 21 years. Thank you so much.
Sure, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dear participants, if you have any queries, please raise your hand, else we go to the end of the session. Ma'am, no one is for query, ma'am. Shall we go?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks
Ma'am,
for your time, and I'm really glad. Yeah.
Ma'am, okay. Vote of thanks. Good morning to all. It gives me an immense pleasure for proposing the vote of thanks for the international webinar on the title DevOps Automation. Thank you all. I render my heartful thanks to the management, Principal Sir, Vice Principal Ma'am, and Dean of Academics Sir for their continuous support and make this event a grand success. Thank you all. I extend my sincere thanks to our head of the department and all the members of our department for their support and cooperation. Thank you all. I also extend my thanks to all the participants who made this event a grand success. Also, I would like to thank the technical support team and all other people who contributed their work for this program. I thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. Feedback link will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Those who fill the feedback form can get your e-certificate. Thank you.